Now we're ready. I'm going to start by introducing a special surprise guest, Ambassador Ric Grenell.
Thank you all very much. Thanks for having me. Tim, any house that has a stormtrooper, I'm all in. Thank you so much. As most of you know, I served in the Trump administration. I was the Director of National Intelligence and U.S. Ambassador to Germany, and the most fun job that I had was Presidential Envoy for Kosovo and Serbia. Great fun. And one thing that I learned about being in Washington and working for Donald Trump is that you have to have fighters in Washington, D.C. and in Phoenix. We have reached a point in our country, and I'm a pretty positive person, but we've reached the point in our country where every great civilization has lasted roughly 250 years. Constantinople, the Holy Roman Empire, the British Empire. And we are butting up against that.
Yep.
That's right.
5 years
And Ronald Reagan warned us that every generation has to fight for their freedoms. Gone is the day that you get to come here and listen to some great speeches, have a drink, and then go home and expect someone else to do something to save the country. I'm sorry to tell you, you have to fight.
That's right.
You have to ask yourself every day, what are you doing to save this country? Not what is President Trump doing, or Blake Masters, or somebody else. It's no longer about somebody else. You. And you have to ask yourself every day, do you want this to be the greatest country in the history of the world tomorrow? Or do you want to watch it slip away? I've spent a lot of time in Europe, and I can't tell you how many people in Europe will say to me, Rick, I hope the American people know what's happening. You vote for socialism once, and then it's gone.
That's
right.
I never thought that I would see our country tank in 18 months. 18 months. Everything this president touches turns to crap.
Actually, not president, cartel.
And what I would say is we have to have fighters. I started learning about Blake Masters a while ago. And I think as some of you know, I originally endorsed Jim Lamon for Senate. And I did that because I saw someone who was tough and tough on the borders. But I came to the conclusion after working closely on the Lamon campaign that we needed to go a different path. I saw some things from the Lamon campaign that I didn't like. I raised my voice, and I'm going to be honest about one thing. I saw within that campaign some negative attacks that were not true. And I'm going to give you one that really burned me. My friend Peter Thiel is someone who has taken on big tech. He has been a reformer for big tech. We all know big tech is a terrible, woke industry. But within industries, you have people who are trying to do the right thing, the reformers. And I raised my hand early on when they were deciding that they were going to go and attack Peter and attack Blake. And I said, this is not what Republicans do. Because when we find people who are the fighters, you don't bring them down. I have to tell you, I watched as little by little the consulting team around Jim began to attack President Trump. And I would raise my hand and say, this is not the area that we need to go into. We shouldn't do this. But little by little, it happened. Now, I'm watching the January 6th committee hearings, which I shouldn't be. I should be waiting for the January 6th, the musical. Because that's clearly coming next. Or maybe January 6th on ice. This whole circus that's happening. But one thing that drives me crazy and really convinced me that I needed to unendorse Jim and endorse Blake Masters was because I watched as Republicans on the committee began to attack their own. What happened to Liz Cheney? What happened to Liz Cheney? I worked in the Bush administration, the Bush-Cheney administration. Do you know that the left said that Dick Cheney should be arrested for war crimes? And the people that came out and said, don't be stupid, and pushed back were Republicans. The same Republicans that Liz Cheney now attacks. She was born in Northern Virginia. And she continues to lead the way in Republicans attacking Republicans with phony messaging. And that's what happened to me. It's a tough thing to unendorse. It's a tough thing to have that conversation and say, this is not what you want to be associated with. But when I looked at Blake, and I talked with Blake, and even when I had endorsed Jim, Blake and I continued to talk. His style is amazing. He's somebody who is going to talk to you whether or not you're with him. That's amazing. And Blake continued to reach out and just have conversations with me about issues. And I came to the conclusion that Blake Masters, his position on issues, and his style is the best person to represent Arizona in the U.S. Senate. So I want to thank all of you all for coming out and getting involved, because without your involvement, we're not going to have our country for very much longer. So I hope that what you do today is leave here energized about your role in what you have to do. Some of you have to storm the beaches of Facebook. Some people have to write bigger checks. Some people have to use their voice to be louder. Some people are influential. Some people could run for office. But you have to ask yourself, what are you doing to save this country? I think there's nothing better than to make Arizona a state with a Republican senator like Blake Masters. If you think about it, on the West Coast, from Colorado, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, California, Oregon, and Washington, we don't have a single Republican senator. The entire West Coast. Think about that. That's not only embarrassing, but we see what that is doing to our country. And this is a seat that you can win. But it's only going to be won if you get up and realize you got to fight and you got to do something. I hope you do something a little bit more after leaving here today. Thank you all very much for having me. And Blake,